Jim Schultz here for the FQ podcast. And yeah, man, we're back. We're back, and I'm super pumped about doing these video versions of the podcast now. So if you're watching these on YouTube, you are getting the unedited, the unfiltered version of the video podcast, man. It's just me, just chilling, just talking, right? I mean, that's all we're doing. I just wanted to make this really accessible for you guys. If you guys do tend to or prefer consuming my content on the YouTube channel, you might have been wondering, hey man, I would really love to have the podcast over here on the YouTube channel. And so, so here you are. You got the podcast on the YouTube channel, and that's just how we're going to do it now. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit of fitness, and this topic is a little bit out there, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I really try to make all of my content, whether it be a podcast, YouTube video, Instagram post, it doesn't matter. I try to make it all as actionable as I possibly can. Let me just say on the front end, I don't know how actionable this is going to be necessarily. I don't know that you're going to listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's what I need to do. I think it's possible, and I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think that there's a hope and a chance that that is going to be the case for some of you. But it's maybe less so than some of the other stuff that I do. Even the mindset and the more of the rah-rah motivational stuff, I still try to have there be some really actionable content. This is going to be a little bit out there. And so let's go ahead and get into it. So I think I figured it out. I figured out why I love bodybuilding. And I'm a bit surprised as to why it took me so long to figure this out. So I am 38 years old. I was born in 1981. And so for all of my friends out there that might be listening that are in their 30s, early 40s, like you're an 80s kid, a late 70s kid, like you're going to totally be able to relate to this. Even the kids today are going to be able to relate to this. But growing up, when Nintendo came out and when video games became extremely popular, I mean, I remember being 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and that's all I did was play video games, right? All I did was play video games. Obviously, I loved sports games, Tecmo Bowl, Baseball Stars. Those were like my favorite games of all time. But I also loved the whole different genre of video game, which was the role-playing game. So these are your games like the two most popular ones of my day were Zelda and Final Fantasy. I know Zelda is still going strong in today's world. I don't know if Final Fantasy still is or not. But these were the two games that I really, really spent like weeks, months of my life playing. Which, going back, I'm kind of like, oh man, I wasted so much time. But I have so many fond memories from doing this, honestly, that I don't know if it was time wasted necessarily. And I am kind of one of those people that says, I wouldn't be the person I am today, blah, blah, blah. Like, I actually believe that. I think a big reason why I love bodybuilding so much is because it's basically a real life role-playing game. It's basically what I did as a kid for hours, days, weeks, months, doing it as an adult. But the difference is it's real life. The difference is it's not just a game cartridge that you blow on and then put in the console and hope that it works. And then, if things don't work out, you just press the reset button and you start over. No, like this is real life, right? There are no do-overs in a sense. There's always a brand new day and you can always start fresh. Like, I got all that. But it's just like, man, like this really counts. That really, really fires me up. Like, that really gets me excited, and maybe it'll get you excited too. If you're a role-playing game fan, or if you used to do this as a kid, and you're also a fitness enthusiast, then maybe you will connect to this a little bit, and it'll give you a different way of thinking about your training and your nutrition and your physique transformation goals and whatever you're trying to do. The thing that I loved the most about role-playing games, one of my favorite activities to do, was to just block off some time. I'm 9, right? So what else do I have to do? But I take a 6-hour block and I would just say, all right, I'm going to spend these next 6 hours. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to whine about it. I'm just going to go out in the fields and I'm just going to build up my experience. I'm just going to go out in the field and I'm going to collect gold or rupees or whatever the currency of the game happens to be. I'm just going to go out and I'm just going to log in the time. I'm just going to put in the work so that I can build up my character, so that I can improve my skill level, so that I can gain experience, so that I can upgrade my sword, or that I can upgrade my shield or my armor, or I can make it to the next stage in the game, but I'm just not ready for it yet. I'm just not ready. I'm not equipped with the experience or the skill or the weaponry that I need to get to the next level of the game. If I try to do that now, if I go into the next boss or the next boss's lair, all his henchmen, they're going to get me, man. I'm just not ready for that. I haven't reached that level yet. So what I need to do is I need to go out and I need to beat up on some of these enemies that I know I can beat, or I need to, go up against enemies that are on par with me, or I need to go, just reach a little bit and fight. I remember, I think was it Zelda or Final Fantasy? Or was it Dragon Warrior? I think it was Dragon Warrior now. Wow, Dragon Warrior, man. You guys, I'm going down memory lane right now. Hard. Dragon Warrior, I'm pretty sure it was Dragon Warrior. It was the greatest thing in the world when you were out collecting, when you were out just building up your character, and you run into a gold man. If you ran into a gold man, they weren't super strong, if I remember correctly, but they weren't super weak either. Like it took some work to beat them. Like you had to get kind of lucky and all that kind of stuff. But if you beat a gold man, you got all of his gold. And obviously he was made of gold, so, it's pretty sweet. If you went out there and you faced a gold man, it was just like the greatest thing ever. Now, again, they may be a little bit above you. They may be a little bit ahead of you in experience. But it was such a rush. And it was so exciting. And it was such a necessary part of the process for you to build up your experience. For you to proceed to the next level. Like all of this work that you needed to do. All of this time that you needed to allocate and invest, you couldn't proceed through the game if you didn't make these regular stops along the way to build up this experience and increase this skill. And so whether it was Final Fantasy or Zelda or Dragon Warrior, man, I just absolutely loved all these times. Well, when I think about present day right now, like when I think about bodybuilding today and my physical fitness pursuits and what I'm trying to do with my own physique and that kind of stuff, I'm like, this is exactly the same. It's just 30 years later and it's real life, right? Like when I go to the gym and I think about my training, when I go to the gym and I think about, it's upper body day or it's back day or it's power day or it's hypertrophy day or it's whatever, it doesn't matter. When I think about that, I actually feel the same feelings that I felt when I was a kid. I feel the same feelings that I felt when I would go out collecting in the fields, when I would go out battling my foes to improve my skill or gain experience. I'm like, man, I'm just in the fields and I'm baking in this room with all these lights on. So if I'm just dripping sweat, that's why. But I'm like, man, this is exactly like what I did when I was a kid. And I loved it then, and I love it as much now. In fact, I love it more now because it's real life. I love it more now because this is not a fantasy game where it doesn't count. This is not some role-playing game where, yes, you go out and you build up your character and you gain all this experience and you improve all your skill and then you beat the game and it's over. And then you beat the game and it's done with. Like now, when I think about bodybuilding and competing and trying to improve my own physique, trying to sculpt it and trying to, define it and trying to add some muscle and try to trim some fat, I'm like, man, I am like a real life version of Link in Zelda. I am like a real life, at least in my own mind, right? And again, this may be way out there. I kind of prefaced you guys on the front end that this may be way out there. But I'm like, man, I'm getting to live out my childhood fantasy. My childhood fantasy was basically, it was just embodied by these video game characters. I am those video game characters. And I'm like, this is so freaking cool. Because I have the ability, by God's grace alone, to be able to train. To be able to, focus on my nutrition. To be able to do what I love to do with physical fitness. And I'm like, man, this is totally crazy. And this is totally wild. And so I think that this might be the thing that I love about training the most. And I kind of wanted to share this with you all tonight, just to give you maybe a different perspective on your own training. It can be very frustrating to feel like you're not getting anywhere. It can feel very frustrating to feel like all the work that you're putting in is for naught. Like, why am I doing all this? I'm not seeing the results. Like, why am I spending all this time in the gym? I'm just spinning my wheels. Like, why am I, I've been trying to track macros and it's just not working for me. Like, what am I doing wrong? Right? Like, these are things that these are questions we all ask at one time or another. I used to ask all these questions in the earlier part of my career. All of them, every single one, half a dozen times every single year. I mean, so I know this feeling very well. I know the carryover and the transfer into training from, a role-playing game very, very well. You're like, why do I have to do all this? Why do I have to go through all this time and all this effort and all this agony to get where I want to go? It would be a lot easier if I saw some progress. It would be a lot easier if I actually saw some improvements. And the thing about physical fitness is, just like those role-playing games, you do see progress along the way. You do jump from an experience level, 2 to 3. You are able to upgrade your weapon from, a dagger to an Excalibur or whatever the case may be. You're able to do all these things. But in between the upgrades, in between the improvements, there's a lot of kind of dead area, right? There's a lot of gray area where you're like, man, I just don't know. I just don't know if I'm moving forward. I just don't know if what I'm doing is working. I just don't know if this is worth it. Right? Like, those are all very real questions. Well, I just wanted to encourage each and every one of you, and I want to lift every single one of you up and just let you know that every single minute that you spend in the gym is worth it. Every single minute that you spend giving your nutritional strategy an earnest attempt, whatever that is for you. You guys know I'm a huge fan of macros. Huge fan of macros. I do think it's the best. I do think it's the most efficient. I do think it's going to leave you with the best relationship with food. I feel all those things. But I also understand it's not the only way. I also understand that some people really like to do keto. I don't understand those people. I don't think I ever will. But I do know they exist. And I love those people. I absolutely love those people. I just want to encourage you that all that stuff that you're doing, all that time that you're investing, all that effort, man, all that effort that you're putting in there, it is going to pay dividends. If you are willing to evaluate along the way. If you are willing to evaluate along the way and say, all right, what I'm doing is working. What I'm doing is not working. What I'm doing is moving me closer to my goal. What I'm doing is not moving me closer to my goal. For example, when you're playing Zelda or Final Fantasy, right? There's a moment in time when you're out in the field and you're collecting, kind of like training would be today, right? There's a moment in time when you're out there and you're like, all right, the enemies I'm fighting right now, it's not worth my time. The enemies that I'm fighting right now, I'm beyond their skill level. Like, my continuing to beat up on them is not helping me. My continuing to beat up on them is not moving me forward. I'm ready for a bigger challenge. I'm ready for the next step in the journey. Now, a week ago, or in the the land of video games, 45 minutes ago, I wasn't ready. This was a challenge for me, right? Like, I wasn't ready to do something beyond where I am now. But man, I've grown. I've matured. So I need to challenge myself a little bit more now. How does that work with the gym? Well, it's just like, when you go into the gym, you're like, man, just being here was a big step in the right direction. Just getting through the doors was a big step in the right direction. But now you've been there for a month. It's like, all right, now you've got to do something else. Now you've got to push yourself. You can't expect the same results from what you did the last 4 weeks. Your body needs more. Your physique needs to be challenged. So you've got to push the envelope. Just like you step up to fighting harder enemies in Zelda or Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior. If you are a first-time bodybuilder, right? So let's go a little further down the path. Like you've been training for a while and you want to do your first competition. I remember my first competition very well. I've talked about it several times on the podcast. That's a whole new level. That's a whole new level of dedication. That's a whole new level of training. That's a whole new level of sacrifice. But then you do that first competition and it's like, all right, from competition 1 to competition 2, there's going to be a jump. There's going to be a leap, right? You're going to have to push the envelope a little bit more. Just like you did back when you played Zelda. Just like you did back when you played Final Fantasy. And so I just want to encourage you all that if you're feeling like what you're doing right now is wasting your time, then maybe what you need to do is maybe you need to give yourself a really hard look and say, maybe it's time to step it up a little bit. Maybe it's time to go to that next level. And that next level could manifest itself in a number of ways, right? Maybe your training needs to be a little bit more challenging. Maybe you need to pick up some heavier weights. Maybe you need to start logging your training and you haven't been logging it ever. Maybe in the kitchen, you need to start tracking your macros. Maybe in the kitchen, you need to start weighing your food. Maybe in the kitchen, you need to keep a food journal, right? Maybe in the kitchen, you need to do fill in the blank. Again, there's a number of ways to do this. I probably don't have to tell you what the next step is for you. I bet you that 80% of you know what it is. 85% of you know what you should be doing next, and you're just not doing it. You're just not doing it for a number of reasons, right? Like you don't want to, you're lazy, you're scared, you're fearful. I mean, there's a million different reasons why you might not be doing this. But I just want to kind of challenge you tonight and say, maybe this is what you need to do. Maybe what you need to do is go to that next level. But in addition to going to the next level, like we just talked about for the last few minutes, there's another angle of the whole role-playing game analogy that I really find to be quite fascinating. And it's this. So when you played Zelda and Final Fantasy back in the day, you built up your character, right? You built up your character to a certain level, and then you were ready to take on the next enemy or the next foe or whatever. So this is kind of like what we just talked about for the last few minutes. Going to that next level, you're ready to take, the next step and that kind of stuff. Well, eventually you get to the point where your character is strong enough that you're able to fight the final enemy, that you're able to take on the last boss and, beat that boss, and then the game is over. You win, you rescue the princess, whatever the case may be. Take that idea and transfer it into training and transfer it into fitness. There is no end point. There is no final boss. Now, for some people that are competitive in nature, like I am, with being a competitive bodybuilder, if you're a bodybuilder or a power lifter or a physique athlete, bikini competitor, figure, whatever the case may be, then you may actually have a definitive goal. You may actually say, all right, listen, once I turn pro, which is what I'm trying to do in the fall, once I turn pro, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to compete anymore. That would be great. Once I win a pro show, like, I'm done. I'm not going to compete anymore. Once I win a world title, like, I'm done. I'm not going to compete anymore. Those are all amazing goals, obviously. And they could definitely fit the framework of kind of the whole Zelda Final Fantasy thing. But the thing about fitness, and I think the thing that draws each and every one of us into it, it's both a blessing and a curse. It's both a really, really positive thing and also can be a really, really negative thing. There's no end point. There actually is no finish line. You just keep going into perpetuity, right? Indefinitely out into the future. Like, you may stop competing. You may kind of achieve the goal that you have for yourself, but most likely you're not going to stop training. Most likely you're going to continue to try to get better. Most likely you're going to continue to try to evolve as a fitness enthusiast. Now, that may take on a different form. Like, for you, getting better after you win your pro card or after you achieve whatever goal you want to achieve, it might just be, hey, I want to find a way to continue to train and spend more time with my family. I want to find a way to continue to train and spend more time with my kids. Because if you're a competitive athlete at a high level, which I'm now starting to kind of experience and realize myself, it's a huge time commitment, and it's a real drain on your schedule. And so not only do you need a support system around you that is amazing, but you're taking time away from being with that support system. So what you might want to do is you may want to spend more time with those people. Well, whereas Zelda and Final Fantasy had a clear endpoint, training does not. And I think that that's kind of frustrating for a lot of people. I think that the real positive side of it is that, a lot of us that do this are very type A. We're hard workers. We're overachievers. Like, we're kind of like, yeah, like, you show me what to do, I'm going to do it. Like, you don't have to worry about that, right? Like, that's generally speaking the type of people that are attracted to something like higher level competitive physique sports. Whether you actually step on stage or not, it doesn't necessarily matter, but I think you guys kind of know what I'm saying here. Well, because of that the limitlessness of it in the beginning is very exciting. It's very attractive. It's very alluring. But after a while, it gets to be like, man, there's no end to this. It gets to be a bit of a drag. It really does, and I've definitely felt that at times in my own life. I don't feel it as much as I get excited about the limitlessness of it, but it's definitely real. It's definitely there. And that's why I think that the tie-in with role-playing games is so clear to me. And the connection is so it's so cool and obvious in my view, because you have this building up of the characters, but you have one that stops, the role-playing game, and one that never does, real life. And so I don't know if you guys can take anything away from this. I definitely rambled a little bit more than I do normally, and I ramble a good bit. So for me to say that means that I definitely am aware that there was a good bit of yammering going on there. But I still genuinely hope that you pulled something away from this. Especially if you're around the same age as me, you're going to be able to relate to what I'm talking about. And so if you bring this all full circle, let me try to give you guys one tangible nugget if you're still hanging on at this point, which would be amazing. I used to love Zelda, and I used to love Final Fantasy simply for the love of the game. The reason why I didn't mind going out and collecting, the reason why I didn't mind sinking hours into those activities was because I loved it. I loved every part of it. I didn't care if I was, if I wasn't ready to go to the next boss. Yeah, sure, I got a little frustrated, and I got a little this, and I got a little that, but I just went out in the fields, and I looked for Goldman, and I took him down. As soon as I found him, I beat him up. And that was that. And then I moved on, and it was amazing. It was incredible. Take that same idea and apply it to your training. Take that same idea and apply it to your fitness. And I'm going to tell you guys something right now. It's going to really change things for you. It's going to really change the way you view your training, your nutrition, the entire process. You're going to view setbacks in a whole new way. You're going to view sticking points in a whole new way, because they're not going to lead to as much frustration, because you're going to recognize and remember this is just part of the game. This is just part of the game. One of the lines that I like to use from time to time is, challenges just remind me that I'm committed. Challenges, I sound like Eli, he's sounding it out. Challenges, they just reaffirm my commitment to what I'm trying to do. So I really try not to look at them in a negative way. I really try not to look at them in the obstacles and the hurdles with a dark cloud. Because I'm just like, man, just like when I played Zelda, and just like when I played Final Fantasy, when I ran into an enemy that I couldn't beat, when I ran into an enemy that gave me a whooping, I knew that, man, I'm on the verge of something. I'm on the verge of breaking through to that next level. I'm on the verge of breaking into that new dungeon, right? I'm on the verge of, opening up this brand new section of the world that I've never seen before. It's the exact same with your level of fitness. However that fitness might manifest itself, as a power lifter, as a bodybuilder, as someone that just wants to get super lean, as someone that just wants to achieve their best physique ever. You're going to have these levels along the way. And just understand that when you face these challenges, when you face these obstacles, it is literally your body telling you that you're about to enter a new phase, that you're about to move up to the next level. Because if you kept progressing, think about it, right? If you kept progressing, doing what you are currently doing, then you're at the right level, literally by definition, right? If what you're doing right now is delivering the results that you need, then you are at the appropriate level, which is great because it's encouraging. But once you hit an obstacle, once you hit a roadblock, just know that, all right, you've got to step it up. You've got to answer the bell. And that means one thing. You're about to enter a new level. You're about to increase your experience level, your skill level, your whatever level. You're moving on to the next stage. And so, I don't know, man. It's just something that's been on my mind, been on my heart lately, and I hope it's helpful for you guys. If you listen to this on your commute to work or on the treadmill or whatever, I hope I was able to burn up, 30 minutes of your time and kind of made it pass a little bit more easily. And hopefully you guys actually got a little bit of something tangible from that, although I feel less optimistic about this one than I do maybe some other ones. But nevertheless, I appreciate you guys so much. I do. Your time, your attention, it means so much to me. I know that you have so many different options at your disposal. The fact that you chose to listen to me or watch me, if you're doing the video version of the podcast these days, I'm just really, really humbled by that and so appreciative. If you want to subscribe wherever you're listening to this or wherever you're watching this, that'd be amazing. If you want to share it with a friend and be like, yeah, this dude's a total kook, like he's totally off the reservation, you got to listen to this guy, that would also be amazing. And I think that's it, man. We'll just see you guys next time.